United Nations, it's not our friend. Too many of its agencies are hopelessly compromised. I mean, you take the World Health Organization. Its bungling of the coronavirus crisis proved that its boss seems totally dominated by China. The WHO's goodwill ambassadors even include the wife of China's dictator. Yet Malcolm Turnbull. When he was Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull promised to sign us up to a deal to let another totally discredited UN body, the Human Rights Council, to come inspect our jails. These people could just walk in, uninvited, no notice, talk to our prisoners and tell us how bad we were. What an incredible surrender of our national sovereignty. And what makes it really stink are the countries on this council that's meant to be judging us and our human rights. I mean, countries like Afghanistan, Sudan, Libya, not famous for their human rights. Non-democracies like Qatar, one-party states like Eritrea, and the thuggish socialist basket case Venezuela. We'll have them going through our jails telling us we're evil. While China, it wouldn't let this group within a bull's roar of its jails. Well, no wonder some Australian states are now saying, well, no, they won't go along with this. The federal government can't force them to open up, and they won't. In New South Wales, for instance, Corrective Services Minister Anthony Roberts says the United Nations would gain far more respect pursuing countries that lack the robust independent oversight bodies that we have in New South Wales. And absolutely correct, spot on. Australia is best run by Australians. It's a democracy. The day that we let the United Nations be our judge is the day that we lose our judgment and our pride. I was joined a short while ago by Andrew Clennell, Sky News political editor. Andrew Clennell, thank you for joining me. The premiers don't seem to be on board with this idea of letting the UN walk uninvited into our prisons. Amazes me that Malcolm Turnbull thought this was a great idea in the first place.
It's pretty surprising, isn't it? I mean, I saw the revelations like you in the Australian newspaper today, and obviously it's come from a state corrective services minister who's not too happy with it. I just don't think it'll ever get off the ground. And like you say, it's a Turnbull proposal. I don't think Scott Morrison would be into this at all. I mean, where does it end for the government? Are they going more through detention centres, immigration detention centres after that? I mean, the UN hasn't covered themselves in glory on a lot of issues, not least of which, you know, we had the WHO business with the not really doing enough early in the pandemic. So I can't really see how they can lecture us on the way our prisons are run. And there are already plenty of sort of Inspector General of prisons bodies around the place and ability to oversight prisons, ombudsmans and the rest, without having this, UN situation where the council's involving some countries with some pretty ordinary practices on occasion, overseeing how we run our prisons. Sounds crazy, to be honest, Andrew.
The Prime Minister today unveiled his $1 billion housing building stimulus package. The bit that got me, as I was saying on last night's show, Andrew, was the feeling that I'm paying for someone else's renovations. I know the industry needs a bit of stimulation, but I don't want to pay for someone's new kitchen. I'm struggling to pay for my own house at the moment, new home. And I think a lot of Australians might feel the same. But how's that package gone down today?
Well, I think the renovations is unusual. I mean, for a long time we've seen first homeowner grants and even new homeowner grants in a bid to keep residential construction going. There's no doubt since the pandemic started there's been real concerns from that industry. They were going off a cliff, a 50% reduction in business, because they're still building now. There's not the problem right this instant because all the work had been commissioned a while ago. But as soon as the pandemic happened, they call them the order books, they were completely empty. So the government went for renovations as well, but said didn't want rorting, so they went for big renovations, over 150 grand. But then they restricted it by means test to $200,000 a household. Now, I don't know, if you're a cop and a teacher or whatever, and $150,000 for the household or $160,000, you're not going to be getting a $150,000 renovation. You've got enough problems with your mortgages and electricity bills. So I don't see who's actually going to be taking up the scheme. Now, the government comes back to me and says, well, the average renovation the last 3 months in Australia was 160 grand, but I'll be interested to see how much those people earned in Sydney and Melbourne in particular, probably different in other cities. But in terms of the new homeowner grants, he's only putting it in for 6 months. The states are topping it up. There's clearly a need there. You've got to get to the point at the moment, Andrew, where any sort of stimulus will do. I take your point where you say, well, open everything up. That'd be a nice start, and that's a very good point. But nevertheless, we're going to have some long-term unemployment now, and anything you can do as a government to stimulate the economy and stop that, I think I actually agree with.
Andrew, a technical question about the stimulus, this housing stimulus package. Does it include stimulus if you want to renovate your front lawn? Because the Prime Minister and the travelling press pack just trampled it. Have a look at this today.
10,000 Australians.
Can everyone get off the grass, please?
Sure. Let's just move back from there.
Hey guys, I've just reseated that.
Yeah, please, off the thing.
Sorry, man.
That's all good. Thanks. So it's the projects that count. It's the projects that count. And I was talking about the first home loan deposit team.
So, Andrew, will that homeowner be able to claim for a renovation to his front lawn? And the Prime Minister can sign it off on it. He knows it probably needs it now.
Well, I'm told there was a conversation between the gentleman and security afterwards where he came out to inspect the damage, but there wasn't any, fortunately for the travelling press pack. But it's just a great moment. I mean, you had Donald Trump and the police over there having to use batons and riot shields, and a poor old Channel 7 reporter and cameraman got involved in order that he could go for a walk down the street. Well, here you can walk anywhere. He's always got security, of course, but the worst thing that's going to happen to him, it seems, is some bloke complaining about the journos treading on the lawn. A great moment, I thought.
A great moment. And just finally, Andrew, New Zealand has got, I think, only about one case left of someone sick, probably not even that now. They're opening the country to at least having sports stadiums filled with people, while we're really dragging the chain. How do you understand the difference between us and them?
Well, I just think the state premiers are more cautious, to be honest with you, and the health officers are more cautious. And funnily enough, where you are in Victoria, there might actually be a reason for that in terms of filling up stadiums, because there's community transmission in Victoria. There ain't anywhere else evidence of it. New South Wales has gone 8 days without a community transmission case. It's only the returning travellers in quarantine that are producing the cases at the moment. South Australia hasn't had community transmission that I know about for at least a month. Why aren't the footy stadiums full in South Australia? I can understand the caution around chucking 100,000 people in the MCG and they all come out and they can spread the thing, even though you're safer outdoors. But I believe in July we'll start to see some socially distanced crowds. We're going that way. But I just can't understand a South Australia or a WA. There's such minimal risk there. Scott Morrison, when he started his road to recovery, saying here are the 3 stages, said if not now, when? And the longer we wait, the longer it's going to hurt us economically, and it's going to hurt people and their lives and livelihoods in the months ahead, Andrew.
Oh, South Australia missed a golden opportunity to say we'll host the AFL competition because we've got no community transmission for a month.
That's a good point.
Come in and we'll do it. They need the kickstart to their economy, let me tell you. Anyway, I tell you what, Andrew, we're going to have a little test of Victoria's laws, because we've got, what, thousands of people are due to turn up in an anti-racism protest on the weekend. And if there's no community transmission of the disease after that in a couple of weeks, we will know that these social distancing laws were damn useless, not needed, and drop them now. Thank you so much indeed for your time, mate.
Thanks, Andrew.